I knew something was wrong before the bread arrived. The envelope confirmed it. I drive a 2006 Tacoma with a cracked mirror I keep forgetting to fix. I wear a Casio, not as a bit, I just don't need a watch that costs more than a mortgage payment. To tell me I'm late, my name is Frank Coloulton. I own Coloulton Marsh Industries, 14 states, just under 4,000 employees. A number I won't say out loud, because numbers like that change how people look at you, and I've spent 22 years making sure nobody looks at me twice. That's not modesty. That's a weapon. 3 Thanksgivings ago, my daughter Lacey brought home a man named Clayton Hale. I shook his hand, looked him in the eye, and thought, this man has never been told no. You can always tell. The world buffing them their whole lives leaves a particular shine. He wasn't a bad man. His numbers were clean, his instincts sharp, so I did something I'd never done in 22 years of business. I made him CEO of my company without telling him it was mine. As far as Clayton knew, he'd been headhunted, interviewed, earned it, which, to be fair, he mostly had. I just greased the door a little. Lacey called it the plot of a soap opera. I called it strategic family planning. She gave me the look. Fathers, you know the one? 14 months later, Clayton called. His parents were in town. Dinner. Proper introduction. They've been asking about you for a while. Frank Dot. Something shifted in my gut. Not an alarm. More like a word you recognize but can't place. I went anyway. I wore my cleanest flannel on purpose. The restaurant was Aldridge's, the kind of place where the menu has no prices and the staff makes eye contact like they've been trained to. Stewart and Norma Hale were already seated. Stewart hit me with the double-handed shake. Norma said I looked wonderfully comfortable, which is expensive. Restaurant 4. I see the flannel and I'm not worried. Good, we ordered. Small talk. Then 40 minutes in, right between the entree and the moment I was starting to think I'd imagined the whole thing, Stewart reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope, cream-colored, thick, the kind that doesn't come from a drugstore. He placed it on the table, the way you place something when you want the other person to understand what's inside matters. Norma picked up her wine glass. And Clayton, this is the part I keep coming back to you. Clayton looked down at his plate. If you've made it this far, do us one quick favor and hit subscribe. It costs you nothing and it means everything. Thank you, genuinely. Inside the envelope, photocopied documents, organized, lawyer touched, and at the top of the first page, a name I hadn't seen written down in 20 years. Victor Marsh. In 1987, Victor and I were partners. 26 broke, building a small manufacturing outfit in Columbus from nothing. For 4 years, I ignored every sign. He was skimming, quietly, consistently, the way termites work until the structure is hollow and you don't know it, until you lean on the wrong wall. By 1991, he'd siphoned enough to fund a competing firm built on our clients, our contacts, my relationships. When I found out, I didn't get loud. I went very, very quiet. 6 months documents and everything. When the file was thick enough to end him 17 different ways, I sat him down and gave him a choice. Disappear or explain himself to a jury. Victor chose to disappear. What I didn't know, what I had no way of knowing, was that Victor had a younger brother, a boy who was 11 years old when all of this happened. A boy who grew up hearing one side of the story from a broken man who never once admitted what he'd actually done. A boy named Stewart. Stewart wanted me to resign. Wanted a settlement. Wanted it done before his son's name got caught in the wreckage. And then Clayton finally looked up. It wasn't the face of a conspirator. It was the face of a man realizing that dinner was never just a dinner. I reached into my jacket, placed my own envelope on the table. Smaller, white, unremarkable. Victor's records are incomplete, I said. Which makes sense. A man building a false narrative only keeps the pages that support his version. What I had? Original bank records. Wire transfers to a shell company in Victor's wife's maiden name. 3 emails where Victor explicitly planned to replicate our client list and a signed affidavit from his accountant. 71 years old, perfectly healthy, absolutely willing to testify. Stewart's confidence didn't just crack, it folded. Then Clayton turned to his father, voice flat, precise. You positioned me, you found out who I was working for, and you saw an opportunity. You let me fall in love with Lacey because you thought I was your way in? Stewart had no answer for that. Neither did Norma. I stayed very still because what was happening across that table had nothing to do with me anymore. And everything, too. Do with a young man seeing his father clearly for the first time. I'm not pursuing anything legal, I told Stewart. Not because I couldn't, but because grief makes people do things the undamaged version of themselves never would. I understand that, but here's what I need you to hear. Clayton is CEO of my company. Lacey, as of her 25th birthday 3 months ago, is a majority shareholder in that same company. Your son married into something you spent years trying to take a piece of. And the only reason any of that remains available to him is because he just proved to me, in the last 10 minutes, that he is not you. The silence that followed that sentence was the most expensive silence I've ever purchased. And I didn't spend $1 on it. Stewart folded his napkin, placed it on the table, left a cream envelope behind. Smart. Clayton and I ordered dessert. The lava cakes were obscenely good. I tipped the waiter generously. The man had earned it. Driving home in the Tacoma, I thought about what it means to build something, not just a company, a way of moving through the world, so that when someone finally comes for you, and someone always eventually comes, you're not caught off guard at a dinner table, you're already home. If you liked this story, hit that like button and subscribe for more. And as always, thank you for being here.